Welcome to the deep dive. We take your sources, articles, research notes, and really dive deep into the most important bits of knowledge and insight.
Mhm.
Today, we're looking at something pretty fascinating: the enduring power, the mystique, really, of unsolved mysteries.
Yeah, they really capture the imagination, don't they?
They do. And we're focusing on two really infamous cases. Very distinct, but both have captivated people for generations.
Mm.
One is shrouded in, that classic Victorian fall,
Right, London.
and the other pops up out of the sun-drenched but pretty chaotic landscape of 1960s California.
Indeed. And our mission for you, the listener, in this deep dive is to really get a handle on how these specific unsolved horrors, well, they didn't just terrify people back then.
Yeah.
They actually became this foundational blueprint. That's the word for it. A blueprint for modern true crime storytelling, for investigation, and, that public obsession we see everywhere now.
That really is the core of it, isn't it? Because think about it. Your favorite Netflix doc, that podcast you binge listen to.
Or falling down a Reddit rabbit hole late at night.
Exactly. None of that just appeared out of thin air.
Hmm.
Its roots, the sort of narrative DNA, you can trace it straight back to how the media and the public got involved with these foundational cases.
That's what we're unpacking. How these specific mysteries really shape the way we consume crime stories today. It's a path from, well, historical horror to modern fascination.
Okay, so let's start our journey. We're going back to 1888 London. Dark alleys, gaslight.
That stark Victorian contrast, right? Incredible wealth right next to grinding poverty.
Yeah, and the air itself just felt heavy. Literal fog, but also metaphorical fog, social upheaval, industrialization. It was a tense time.
And right into that steps this terrifying figure, anonymous. We still don't know who he was. Jack the Ripper.
His murders in Whitechapel, they didn't just shock the city, they basically created a whole new kind of criminal legend.
And what's really key here, I think, is how fast and how intensely the media of the time grabbed onto it. We're talking about the burgeoning tabloid press.
This wasn't just reporting news, was it?
No, not at all. It was a furious competition. Papers like The Star, the Pall Mall Gazette, they were racing to outdo each other. More lurid details, wilder theories, bigger headlines.
Trying to sell papers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This rivalry, it pushed the boundaries of journalism. It set a new template, honestly, often pretty exploitative, for how crime would be covered from then on. They took these awful events and spun them into this ongoing, captivating story. The investigation itself became like public entertainment.
And it was that press, right, that noisy, sensationalist media. They did something incredibly powerful. They dubbed him Jack the Ripper.
That name, it changed everything.
Before that, he was just an unknown killer, identified by the horror of his acts, but giving him that name apparently from one of his own supposed letters.
Right. The From Hell letter, though its authenticity is debated.
It transformed him. He wasn't just a criminal anymore. He became this entity, almost a brand, like you said, more than a person, a character in some horrible play.
It's the birth of the legendary villain, really. That might be the first time a crime was instantly molded into a powerful cultural myth, purely by the media. That name,
Yeah.
Jack the Ripper.
Yeah.
It was chilling, evocative. It stuck in the public mind way more than the Whitechapel murderer ever would have.
So the name itself was crucial.
Hugely. And building on that, the fact that he was never identified, his anonymity.
Oh.
You might think that would make him fade away, but it did the opposite. It fueled the fire.
How so?
Well, with no known face, no real identity, the tabloids could just spin endlessly. They filled the void with speculation, theories, sheer terror. The public could project all their fears, their urban anxieties onto this unseen monster.
So the mystery itself became the story.
Precisely. It created this perfect ground for obsession. Readers became armchair detectives, didn't they? Poring over every detail, every rumor printed in the papers.
And this whole media-driven myth-making, that laid the groundwork, didn't it, for how we engage with unidentified killers even now.
Absolutely. It established this powerful template. How society interacts with, consumes, obsesses over future mysteries. This isn't just some historical quirk. It's the root of modern crime storytelling and public engagement. It all starts here, really.
Okay, so from those dark, foggy London streets,
That-
let's jump forward. Big leap. Time and geography. We land in 1960s California.
A completely different vibe.
Yeah.
Sunshine, counterculture, social upheaval of a different kind.
Yeah, free love, all that. But also, paradoxically, this undercurrent of fear, coded taunts from a killer, and the start of what we'd now call, the modern true crime subculture.
It's this vibrant but also kind of vulnerable backdrop where the Zodiac Killer starts his reign of terror,
Mm.
And he really changed the game again.
So the Ripper cemented the mystery of the unseen killer.
Right. Decades later, on this tumultuous California stage, another enigma pops up.
Yeah.
And he leverages that public fascination the Ripper ignited, but adds this modern, chilling twist.
His first attacks, they got attention right away, didn't they, in the Bay Area?
They did. The terror starts December 20, 1968. Benicia, California. He targets 2 high school students, Betty Lou Jensen and Davy Arthur Faraday. Shot them while they were parked on Lake Herman Road, a classic lover's lane.
Already setting a pattern? Secluded spot, young couple?
Methodical. And then, it didn't take long. Just 7 months later, July 1969, second attack. Blue Rock Springs Park in Vallejo. Another couple.
Darlene Ferrin was killed, but her companion survived.
Michael McGough, yes. He survived, despite being shot multiple times. His testimony was crucial. It gave the first eyewitness description of the attacker.
What did he say?
Stocky white male, about 5'8" in Nick, short, light brown, curly hair. It was the most concrete description they ever got, but ultimately, well, it didn't lead to capture. Still frustrating.
So the pattern was clear early on, targeting young couples, secluded spots, striking with this, ruthless efficiency.
But the efficiency of the attacks contrasted sharply with what came next. What truly set the Zodiac apart, what cemented his infamy, and really shifted the whole paradigm, wasn't just the murders, it was his communication.
Letters.
The letters, the codes, the psychological warfare, chilling, calculated, and deeply personal.
Okay, let's talk about those letters, because they are just unique in the history of crime. He wasn't just killing people.
No, he was a provocateur, a twisted kind of performance artist. He wanted to control his own story, his own narrative. August 1st, 1969, he sends out his first big salvo.
3 letters, right, to major newspapers.
Almost identical letters, yes, to the Vallejo Times-Herald, the San Francisco Chronicle, and the San Francisco Examiner. And these weren't just I did it notes. They were audacious, terrifying, designed to scare the public and totally mock the police.
And they had details only the killer would know.
Exactly, proving they were real. But the kicker was the cryptogram. Each letter had part of this 408 symbol cipher, and he claimed his true identity was hidden inside it.
Wow. And the threat attached.
Oh, the threat was chilling. He said if the papers didn't publish the symbols in their front pages, he'd spend the weekend, and I quote, killing lone people in the night, then move on to kill again until I end up with 12 people over the weekend.
Just pure terror. And his writing style was odd.
Yeah, riddled with misspellings, grammatical errors, kind of jumbled thoughts.
Yeah.
Was he trying to seem less intelligent or create a persona? It hinted at this chaotic mind, but one that was also deliberately manipulative.
Did the papers publish? I mean, what did they do?
They hesitated at first, understandably. Was it real? A hoax? But thankfully, he didn't carry out that weekend threat.
Okay.
But then, just 6 days later, he sent another letter. And this one sealed it. It confirmed he was genuine and just deepened the terror.
How?
Well, first, that's when he first called himself Zodiac. And crucially, he included even more details about the crimes. Stuff the public definitely wouldn't know. No doubt left. This was the killer, taunting them.
Which brings us to the codes, the psychological game.
Absolutely central to his persona. That first 400-character cipher, despite seeming so complex, it was cracked remarkably quickly, within a week.
Not by the FBI or police cryptographers.
Nope. By a high school teacher from Salinas, Donald Hardin, and his wife Betty. They figured out it was a pretty simple substitution cipher, where each symbol just stands for a letter.
How'd they crack it?
Painstaking work. Analyzing how often symbols appeared, looking for common letter patterns in English, like the or and. And they did it. They revealed this chilling message.
What did it say?
It talked about his belief that when he dies, he'll be reborn in paradise, and his victims will become his slaves. And he explicitly said the public would never know his true name.
Wow. That's a disturbing glimpse into his mind. And the fact that ordinary people cracked it first.
It really foreshadowed the public's role in this case, didn't it? It wasn't just going to be solved behind closed doors.
But he didn't stop there with the codes, did he? There was a much harder one.
Oh, yeah. Then came the infamous Z340. 340 characters, sent to the Chronicle on November 8, 1969. This one. This one was a different beast entirely.
It resisted for decades, right?
Yeah, for over 51 years. Professionals, amateurs, everyone tried. It became this symbol of the Zodiac's impenetrable mystery. Until 2020.
What happened in 2020?
An international group of private citizens, a mathematician, computer programmers, hobbyists using sophisticated software and collaborative analysis, finally cracked it.
Incredible. What did that one say? Anything about his identity?
Frustratingly, no. It was more rambling, defying police, mentioning he wasn't the person seen on TV, more taunts, essentially. But the cracking itself was huge. It really highlighted the power of modern crowdsourcing and amateur sleuthing.
But even with that breakthrough, some codes are still unsolved.
That's right. Two shorter ones, Z13 and Z32, remain mysteries to this day. They keep intriguing people, keep the puzzle alive.
And his taunts weren't just codes, were they?
No, he diversified his terror tactics. He sent pieces of a victim's bloodied clothing through the mail, pure dominance play. And he sent that really creepy Halloween card to Paul Avery, the Chronicle reporter covering the case. It had a poem, threats, and his crosshair symbol.
That symbol, the circle with the crosshairs, became his signature.
Instantly recognizable. His macabre brand. It appeared on his letters, his communications, and to make things even more maddening, there's supposedly another cipher, one he claims spelled his name, that also remains unsolved. The ultimate tease, forever just out of reach.
So you have the brutality, the codes, the taunting, but the scariest part.
Besides the awful potential for copycats, yes.
Yeah.
The scariest part is that he was never caught.
Never definitively identified.
Despite so many suspects over the years, theories popping up even recently, like in October 2021, there's just no irrefutable court-admissible proof pinning it on any single person.
He got away with it.
He did. That uncaptured status, his enduring anonymity, that's perhaps the most terrifying and lasting legacy of the Zodiac. He won his game in that sense.
So this elusive killer, taunting everyone, sending codes, it must have been a nightmare for law enforcement trying to catch him.
Well, a monumental task. And you have to remember, the tools and coordination we expect today, they just weren't there back then.
What were the biggest hurdles?
Well, first off, jurisdiction. He operated across multiple areas. San Francisco PD, Vallejo PD, Napa County Sheriff, Solano County Sheriff, even the Highway Patrol got involved. Coordinating all that.
Must have been tough. Sharing information wasn't easy.
Exactly. It was manual, slow, often fragmented. And the letters, the codes, while they were clues, they also created immense public pressure and internal pressure. Diverted resources led them down countless false trails.
And the science wasn't there yet.
Critically, no. They lacked modern forensics. No widespread DNA analysis, no advanced digital forensics. They were relying almost entirely on eyewitnesses, often unreliable and painstakingly analyzing handwriting, typewriters, ballistics. Good work, but limited compared to now.
So crucial leads might have just evaporated.
Or couldn't be pursued with the certainty we have today. So the case went cold eventually, stayed open for decades, became one of the most famous, most frustrating unsolved crimes in America's history.
But even with all those challenges, there were people who dedicated their lives to this case.
Absolutely. Individuals who were completely consumed by it, like Dave Toshi, San Francisco PD. He led the investigation for years, just relentless focus.
He's the one who inspired Dirty Harry, right?
Right.
Inspector Callahan.
That's the guy. His determination, his style,
Oh.
it made him iconic. A testament to his dedication, really.
And then there was the cartoonist.
Robert Graysmith.
Yeah.
Yeah, worked for the San Francisco Chronicle, started as a political cartoonist, but he got utterly obsessed with the Zodiac case, turned his focus to just meticulous research.
Became like an unofficial investigator.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
The books he wrote later, Zodiac Unmasked, they were incredibly detailed and brought a huge amount of renewed attention, public and police attention, back to the case decades later.
Which raises that question, what happens when a citizen gets that involved? Good and bad, I suppose.
It's a complex issue in true crime. Passion can drive things forward, but it can also lead down wrong paths. And we should also mention John Douglas from the FBI.
Pioneer in profiling.
Right. His early work really helped shape the psychological profile of the Zodiac. The insights they gained from studying this case helped build the foundations of modern criminal profiling techniques used worldwide now.
So what did the evidence collection look like back then? What did they actually have?
It was painstaking, like I said, and often basic by today's standards. They collected every scrap, fingerprints from a taxi where a driver was killed, handwriting samples from all those letters, bullet casings from the attack sites.
And the letters themselves got intense scrutiny.
Oh, yeah. Forensic experts analyzed everything. The writing style, the paper type, the ink, the postmarks, searching for any tiny clue about who sent them. Each piece was a potential thread, but putting them together, that was the challenge.
And based on all that, what did the profile look like? Who did they think they were looking for?
They developed this picture, right? Based on the evidence, the letters, the behavior patterns. They believed he was likely a white male, probably late 20s to early 40s during the main attacks. Probably intelligent. Yeah, maybe highly intelligent, but also socially isolated, maybe a loner. The detailed codes, the knowledge of weapons. That made some think he had a military background, or at least studied that stuff extensively.
And the motivation.
A huge desire for attention, a need to control the narrative, prove he was smarter than the police. Key narcissistic traits, really. Explained all the taunting, the letter writing. It was all about him.
So decades pass. The case is cold, traditional methods hit a wall, and then modern science offers a potential breakthrough.
Exactly. DNA technology. Specifically genetic genealogy. It completely revolutionized cold case work. We saw with the Golden State Killer in 2018. Huge news. Caught him after decades.
And everyone thought, could this work for Zodiac?
It seemed inevitable, right? That this powerful new tool would be turned on the Zodiac case. It has been.
What does that involve?
Well, investigators have been meticulously going back through all the evidence, looking for any viable DNA, saliva from licking stamps or envelopes, skin cells on the letters, anything.
Tiny amounts, probably degraded over time.
Very tiny, very degraded. It requires microsampling, highly sensitive techniques. But reports suggest it has yielded some promising leads. They're carefully developing these leads, comparing them against genealogical databases. It's brought this renewed, real hope for closure after all this time, maybe closer than ever to an ID.
And connected to that, there's this theory about Gary Francis Post. It's gotten a lot of attention.
It has, especially outside official channels. Post was a California house painter, died in 2018. He's been linked to the case through, well, a mix of circumstantial evidence and the work of this independent group, the Case Breakers.
What's the connection they make?
Several things. They say Post looked strikingly similar to some police sketches of the Zodiac. They also argue his name can be decoded from some of the ciphers. Using specific methods, though, importantly, many cryptographers disagree with that interpretation.
Okay, anything else?
Yeah, people who knew him, friends, acquaintances, maybe even family, reported suspicious behavior over the years. Cryptic comments, alleged confessions that seemed to align with the Zodiac's profile and methods. It's certainly intriguing stuff.
And this is a big but.
A very big but. It's absolutely crucial for you, the listener, to approach this theory, and honestly any Zodiac theory, with real caution.
Law enforcement hasn't confirmed him.
No. The FBI, local police departments, they have not officially named Gary Francis Post as the definitive Zodiac killer. The evidence put forward by the Case Breakers is largely circumstantial.
So, no smoking gun, no DNA match.
Not publicly confirmed, no. Without that concrete DNA proof or a verifiable confession, you can't definitively solve the case in a legal sense. The search continues, forensics are still being applied, but that final answer, it's still elusive. It just shows how hard these cold cases really are.
It's amazing how quickly the Zodiac's influence seeped into pop culture, though, like while the murders were still happening.
Yeah, that's fascinating, isn't it? How fast real-world terror, especially one that was so mysterious and driven by media interaction, could morph into artistic inspiration. It created this weird, unsettling feedback loop. Crime happens, culture reflects it, which maybe even influences the criminal. Who knows?
So by 1971, just a couple of years after his main spree, movies were already coming out.
2 of them, yeah. One was just called The Zodiac Killer. Took some creative liberties, tried to imagine a backstory for him, feeding that public desire to understand the monster.
But the really big one was Dirty Harry.
Oh, absolutely. Also 1971, Clint Eastwood. Now, Dirty Harry was looser with the direct inspiration, but the parallels were obvious. The villain's a sniper named Scorpio.
Zodiac sign.
Exactly. And he sends taunting letters, forces the SFPD to scramble to stop his next move. Dirty Harry was a monster hit. And it really kicked off this wave of movies. Killers leaving coded clues, messages, not just as a signature, but to deliberately misdirect, taunt, lure the cops into their game.
The Zodiac basically created that trope.
He really did. That cryptic killer archetype in film, it flows directly from him. And you see it pop up again and again. Like in The Exorcist III in 1990, the villain is the Gemini killer.
Another sign.
Yep. Uses tricky messages, often biblical, to terrorize people. And, it's maybe more subtle, but you could argue The Silence of the Lambs in 91 drew from it too.
How so? Hannibal Lecter.
Think about it. Lecter, the brilliant, manipulative killer. He doesn't just give info. He uses cryptic clues, unsettling messages, riddles to guide Clarice Starling towards Buffalo Bill. That intellectual cat and mouse, the psychological manipulation through words, it has that Zodiac feel, doesn't it?
Yeah, I can see that. And then came Sis-7.
Sis and Ed, 1995. David Fincher again. Maybe the most expertly done film borrowing this idea. A masterpiece of psychological horror.
Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman, Kevin Spacey as John Doe.
Right. 2 detectives hunting a killer whose crimes line up meticulously with the 7 deadly sins, and the clues left at each gruesome scene. They keep the detectives constantly guessing, pulling them down this dark intellectual rabbit hole. It's still acclaimed today.
Yeah.
Shows the power of that enigmatic, methodical killer idea.
It taps into something deep, doesn't it? That fear of a killer who's not just violent, but smarter than everyone else.
Exactly. And we saw it again in The Bone Collector in '99. Killer collects bones, sure, but he also leaves scraps of paper, weird items at each scene. The clues aren't just evidence. They're meant to toy with the detectives and, importantly, tell his own dark story, just like Zodiac controlling his narrative.
So the direct fascination continued too, right? Films specifically about the Zodiac.
Oh yeah, the case itself kept drawing filmmakers. 2005 had 2 movies, Zodiac Killer and The Zodiac. The second one focused more on a fictional detective and the toll the case took. Then Curse of the Zodiac in 2007, a bit looser with the facts.
But the big one was Fincher's Zodiac movie.
Right, David Fincher came back to it in 2007 with Zodiac, based on Robert Graysmith's books. Hugely acclaimed, praised for its historical accuracy, its painstaking detail about the investigation. Great cast, too. Robert Downey Jr., Jake Gyllenhaal, Mark Ruffalo. It really brought that frustrating, obsessive investigation to life for a whole new audience.
And the influence just keeps going, right, into modern films.
It keeps evolving. You see nods in 7 Psychopaths, Awakening the Zodiac. Even a film like The Snowman in 2017, whatever its flaws, had a killer building snowmen at crime scenes to hint at his next moves. A clear echo of Zodiac's calling cards, his symbolic gestures.
But maybe the most direct recent homage is The Batman.
Absolutely. The 2022 film,
Right.
the Riddler in that is pure Zodiac inspiration, just transplanted to Gotham. The parallels are so striking. Riddler hunting Gotham's elite, planning meticulously, revealing their hidden sins, even Batman's, tearing down their public image.
And the visuals.
Totally deliberate. Riddler's symbol, that question mark, inside circle with a cross through it, it looks almost exactly like the Zodiac's crosshairs. And the film was filled with mysterious messages. Sins of my father, renewal is a lie. Batman has to decipher them.
And Riddler's goal.
He says it himself. To unmask the truth about this cesspool we call a city, taking everyone, cops, public, Batman, on this terrifying, complex chase, guided by his cryptic clues. It's pure Zodiac playbook.
It's just wild how the real Zodiac's reign of terror feels like it was written for a movie.
It really does. And because of that, he's become this enduring figure in our nightmares. He pokes at that deep human need we have to understand evil, to solve the puzzle, to bring order to chaos. That fascination with the unknown, the unsolved. It's a powerful engine for the whole true crime genre.
You know, tracing that line from the Ripper in the tabloids to Zodiac and his letters right up to today's digital age. It's incredible how the public gets involved has changed so much with technology.
Dramatic.
But that core fascination, that urge to crack the case, it seems exactly the same.
It really does. Think back to Ripper's anonymity fueling the papers. Zodiac took that and, well, amplified it massively for his time. The newspapers printing his letters, his codes, they basically turned the investigation into a public show.
And invited people to try and solve it.
Explicitly invited them. That interactive part was key. It wasn't just police work anymore. It immediately became this public puzzle, this collaborative effort, even if the police didn't exactly want it that way.
And now in the digital age, that interactive element has just exploded.
Levels unimaginable back then. The Zodiac case still fuels modern media. True crime podcasts constantly revisit it, analyze everything, evidence, theories, leads, like Serial did for its case, or My Favorite Murder does for many. They bring these old cold puzzles to new ears, letting listeners engage like active participants.
And it's not just podcasts, right? It's online communities.
Oh, huge communities. Online forums, Reddit threads, Facebook groups, all dedicated to discussing, debating, trying to solve the Zodiac mystery. Amateur sleuths, some incredibly skilled, sharing theories, scrutinizing clues. They keep the interest burning bright decades later. It's this global collective investigation happening constantly.
Far beyond what any single police department could manage.
Right. And then there are the books, like Graysmith's Zodiac, became a bestseller. Showed that a deep, factual dive can grip millions across generations.
Plus all the documentaries, that's its own whole thing.
A thriving phenomenon. They offer this in-depth visual look, interviews with original investigators, family members, archival footage, expert analysis. They make the mystery feel really tangible.
And they come at it from different angles.
Lots of different angles. Some, like the Zodiac Killer, case closed. Or The Most Dangerous Animal of All, explore specific theories, like the one about Gary Stewart's father. Others, like The Hunt for the Zodiac Killer, focus on applying new science, Modern code breaking to the old clues.
Trying to crack it with today's tech.
Exactly. Then you have ones like This is the Zodiac Speaking, which has great interviews with original investigators, even surviving victims' invaluable firsthand stuff. Or PBS's American Experience episode, giving that balanced historical view, putting it in context. And newer ones like Deciphering the Zodiac Killer, tracing how the investigation unfolded and how it actually changed police methods.
But after all that, all the books, podcasts, documentaries, theories.
It's crucial to remember, the Zodiac case is still officially unsolved by law enforcement. They haven't closed the book. They continue to work it, examine new leads, re-examine old evidence with new tech. There's still a commitment to finding closure.
Which loops us right back to that core idea, the mystique of the unsolved.
It's powerful. Unsolved cases just fuel this endless interest because they're open-ended puzzles. They practically beg for audience participation. Everyone gets to be a detective, speculate, debate, fill in the blanks.
It's why cases like the Somerton Man, or so many missing persons cases, keep those Reddit threads buzzing. It's the same impulse, right? That collective hunt for answers.
An unbroken line of public engagement with mystery. That desire for answers just doesn't fade.
This intense public fascination, it does raise ethical questions, doesn't it? This whole meta-true crime critique.
It absolutely does. What are the ethics of sensationalizing these crimes? Especially when real victims, real families are still affected. It's a really delicate balance.
On one hand, public interest keeps cases alive, maybe generates new leads.
Can even push technology forward sometimes.
Right.
But on the other hand, the constant rehashing, the wild theories, turning real tragedy into entertainment, it can cause immense pain. And there's always the risk of wrongly accusing innocent people.
So as listeners, as consumers of this stuff, we kind of have a responsibility.
I think so. To be mindful of our role in this fascination. To think about the impact when we engage with these real-life, profound mysteries.
So quite a journey we've taken, from Victorian London's fog, Jack the Ripper becoming this branded villain through the tabloids,
Creating that cultural myth out of an anonymous killer.
to 1960s California, Zodiac's codes and taunts, launching a whole new era of public obsession, cementing that cryptic killer archetype.
Two totally different times, different places.
Yeah.
But paradoxically, they created this incredibly powerful template for how we engage with crime. They turned real horror into these lasting cultural stories, shaping the whole true crime genre we know today.
From detective stories right up to podcasts and docs.
And the fact that they remain unsolved, that's
Why?
a huge part of why they last. Their power is partly in the not knowing.
So that leaves us with a final thought, maybe. What does it really mean for us as a society when our most compelling mysteries, the ones that stick with us the most, are the ones that never get solved?
Yeah, it's a deep question. Maybe the very lack of answers in cases like Zodiac and the Ripper is what guarantees they live forever in our collective mind. It invites endless speculation. It serves as this mirror, reflecting our own deep fascination with evil, with the unknown, and maybe our relentless, often digital hunt for truth.
What does that fascination say about us? Something to think